Hey all, today in the Battlegrounds, we're going to be covering the Overflow build for Undead. We're going to jump into all the different minions, different types of trinkets we can use, how we can make this build work. That being said, let's jump right into it. I just want to thank Jakirik for the footage. Remember, if you haven't checked him out yet, he is a European streamer. He is incredibly good at the game and well worth your time to go dabble in his chat and see what insanity is going on. Now, first we need to talk about the main minions of the build, the things that we really need to do this build. And you're gonna say, well, when do I want to even consider playing this build, Heretic? And that is going to be the moment you see a Catacomb Crasher. It's at tier 5, so you can find this relatively early. Once you've got this, now you start looking to see if you have any of the other parts and pieces either in the shop already, or if they're not too difficult an angle to get with the board you have, and you can actually put this together. Catacomb Crash is very easy. Basically, whenever things die and there's not room for them to go on the board, it's gonna buff all your undead +2/+2 permanently for each one there isn't room for. So the more you could trigger this death rattle on any of these minions that summons more minions, there's no room for them, you're going to gain all these permanent stats. Next thing you're going to be looking for is Titus Rivendare. Titus Rivendare is a no-brainer because it doubles your death rattle, which means there's no space for them, obviously, since there's not space for them to begin with, and then you get more of the buff. Even if there's some space for some of them, by the time it's getting the extra death rattle, typically there isn't room for all of them, so you're at least getting something of a buff. Even in the beginning, when it's small, it still adds up and matters because it's permanent. Probably one of the most important of the generic undead you're going to need to finish this build is going to be the Cadaver Caretaker. It's tier 3. When it dies, it summons 3 1/1s. Hey, guess what? We need to flood the board with as many summons as possible, and if you have this in a Titus, well, there's already not enough space on the board, so go nuts. This minion, the moment you have this build going, you want it to be either in the number 1 slot, or you want taunt on it, or hopefully both. That way you don't have to worry about who goes first. You just guarantee yourself getting the buff. You could slot in any number of undead or other tribal minions that will summon in additional things. But remember, it's only going to buff undead, and you want to summon the max possible minions to get the biggest possible buff. So Cadaver Caretaker, well, is not the only undead by far that summons minions. It's probably the best at this job now. Now, some of the other minions we can find to make this build even better. Like, what can we add to it that can take this to the next level? Now, I like Monstrous Macaw, especially since you can reborn this thing. It's going to trigger out those death rattles, which once again, you don't have room for. Now, the trick to make Macaw valuable is there has to be a way for you to attack and trigger that. So if your only minion that summons more minions is the Cadaver Caretaker, and you've already taunted it, probably don't waste your time with Macaw. What's the point? It's a 50-50 shot, even if it's on your first position, to allow you to attack first so you can get that trigger, because typically your Cadaver Caretakers are going to die. So that being said, keep in mind when you're getting this, if you actually can enable this to the best of the ability, maybe there's something else you can taunt, the temporary and not your Cadaver Caretaker. That way you can at least get that build and get some value out of the Macaw on the early side. On the flip side, if you're concerned about, well, hey, Macaw has to swing, we might not get that, there's no way I can do it, my Cadaver Caretaker's already got taunt. If you find a Hawkstrider Herald, all of a sudden now you don't have to worry about the order. Before anything happens, it's going to trigger your 2 leftmost death rattles, which is then going to not have room for them because nothing's happened yet and your board's full, and all of a sudden you're getting these buffs. So a Hawkstrider Herald is always a great fit for this board also. That way you could just guarantee getting the correct trigger order, as opposed to the Macaw, who may trigger more because he can be reborn, but he might not get to swing or find an optimal target to trigger. And as for one last beast who does get a good honorable mention, this Indomitable Mount. Now, it doesn't get buffed at all by your Catacomb Crasher, but since we already know it's going to summon out 3 beasts, 3 different beasts who typically have death rattles, even if all 3 fit out on the board, odds are you're going to get something to give you more value. Sometimes it doesn't work great, but this is at the stage of the game typically when this is on your board when, hey, I haven't managed to find all the things I need, and I just need a good summon minion to take up that slot. It doesn't have to be the best, it just has to help, and this is a good example of a minion that really does help, even if it doesn't fit the job perfectly because it itself is not getting buffed. Other optional minions that can fit well into this build are things like Sin Runner Blanchy. Blanchy has a very unique ability in so much that they have Reborn, but they're reborn with the full health and enchantment. That means anything you cast on it spell-wise is going to persist when it comes back. And all those stats you've put on it, especially if you have a Catacomb Crasher and it's buffing your board, this is going to come back with those stats again. So when it starts hitting, 400, 400, 500, 500, it is going to be completely out of control because it's just coming back with all these damn stats. And that's when you go truly evil, and then you find an Archlich Kel'Thuzad. This is at the end of your turn. Destroy the undead to the left of this and resummon an exact copy. Now, this is the important thing about this. First, you have to make sure there's space, right? If you say use this on a Blanchy, you need to have room for the new Blanchy and the non-reborn one that's going to be summoned out. It's just going to kill it. Say you have a giant Blanchy 600, 600. So then you're going to have a 600, 600 non-reborn one. And then you're going to have Archlich Kel'Thuzad summon you the full copy again. So you'll have a 600, 600 reborn one sitting next to it. So really you can use Kel'Thuzad to keep printing copies of these while your Catacomb Crasher just keeps buffing your board. It really is a disgusting combo to finish it off. You don't have to do this, and if you find this too late, I definitely would stick away from it. But if you find it early enough, you really can make a monstrous board out of this. Now, if you're worried about all your poor Sin Runner Blanchies who don't have Reborn, they're just lonely standing there, remember Prosthetic Hand is a thing. You can put this on them, and then they have Reborn again, and you'll be all set. There's also Sprightly Scarab. If beasts are in, that way you could at least give it a targeted Reborn that way. So there's lots of ways to get extra value out of these stats and get an even bigger win with these ridiculous horses running around. Now, when it comes to the trinkets we're going to be talking about while playing this build, we're going to skip the lesser ones as always, because what's the point? You don't know you're playing this build when you're picking that. So we're not going to take that into account. We're going to primarily look at the ones that are just for the undead, but at the same time, we have to look at Rivendare Portrait because, hey, this is going to give you a Titus Rivendare. It's going to double its stats. There you go. Now, I don't care really about the double the stats parts because this thing is typically dying way later in the fight and you're not concerned about it. But what I do care about is getting the Titus Rivendare. So if you say need this to say triple, say you've already got 2 and this is offered to you, hey, take the triple, go nuts, have fun. But if you just can't find 1 and it's the thing you're missing from your build, why not? Throw it out there. Yeah, it's not going to be cheap, but it's going to be effective doubling those death rattles and its stats to a lesser extent being useful. Mug of the Sire is not a bad fit at all either, and that's whenever there isn't room to summon a minion on your board, it's going to give your other minions +5 attack. This is a combat buff, so it's temporary, but if you're already summoning a lot of minions, this one can work. It depends which version of this build you're going for, but if you're summoning out a lot of different minions, you just have tons and tons of tokens, this one can definitely give extra value. Unholy Sanctum is probably the last one that's worth mentioning, and that's going to be when you trigger a death rattle, give your rightmost minion +6/+6. Well, if we already discussed, you might be running a Sin Runner Blanchy, or your Titus just means more stats. Stick them all the way on the right side of the board and let them soak up those extra stats. It's not huge, but if you're triggering a lot of death rattles, you really can gain a lot of stats really fast with Unholy Sanctum, especially if you've got this combo going early enough. You trigger enough death rattles, this thing will get very, very big very quickly. And of course, I have to throw a couple board examples up for you right here. These are just different ways you can theoretically play your undead boards. There's nothing locked. It's like, hey, you find the main minions and you make the rest work. Once you've got those main ones, everything else that just summons more minions is gravy until you get to the final board state where you get as big as you possibly can. And it's a lot of fun to play, so enjoy this. But that's it. That's Undead. What do you think? Do you like playing Undead Overflow? Do you not really care for it? I think most people fall into 2 camps because it's really what Undead do nowadays, of course. And that's either attack scaling with lots of tokens, or more of this big stompy Undead Overflow build that people enjoy playing. They both work in their own way. They're just different types of fun. Me, I like them both equally, but I don't get to play them nearly enough. So it's fun when they fall on my lap and I'm like, let's go, let's do this. What do you think? Let me know. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think about this build. And let me know if you like this series of videos. You're helping this channel grow, or just keeping me motivated, or whatever it is. It does make a difference. So thank you. I really do appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I just have fun making these. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the Battlegrounds. Until next time, later. So Crasher, definitely great, because crash